Hi, welcome to another edition of our High School District Librarians Discuss Digital Media Literacy podcast. And I'm Mrs. Meschter, librarian at Chinook Middle School.
And I'm Miss SL, librarian at Sylvester Middle School.
And so today we're going to talk about something that's maybe a little bit of a follow-up to our previous episode, but it's just really digging into this question that we get asked all the time as librarians. There's so much conflicting information on the news. How do I know what to trust? So we're going to talk about just a couple simple strategies to find out what's really happening and who to trust. So
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's become harder and harder because there used to be sort of not universally recognized, but more recognized, like your evening news was sort of like your uncle or your aunt would come into your home at 6 o'clock every night and tell you what you needed to know. And there were probably some there was some misinformation there too, but it was just more accepted that this is where you get your information. But now we have so many resources of information, and it's so easy to find what we call the echo chamber effect. Find some source that agrees with your thinking or agrees with someone else's thinking, that becomes kind of like their go-to spot. And we can't be lazy. We can't have an go-to spot at all anymore. I kind of miss it because I am a little lazy, but
oh yeah. No, I totally miss it. Like it's like this old metaphor that the internet is like a tsunami of information, but it's true. And we're drinking from a fire hose. Like, I mean, there's just all this information coming all the time. When I think about reliable news versus just some of the gossip, the garbage, it always reminds me of So I Married an Axe Murderer, and Mike Myers plays his mother. And she's all like, I read it in the paper. And she's talking about
you do an amazing Scottish accent, by the way. Oh, it's like hidden talent, Miss Meschter.
No, it's my Mike Myers impression.
It's your Mike Myers. Nice.
But all that to say, like, it used to be pretty obvious, like if it was a supermarket tabloid versus if it was a reliable news. And now a lot of the supermarket tabloids have become a little bit more mainstream. A lot of the mainstream news has become a little bit more gossipy. And with our 24-hour news cycle, we have editorials mixed in with news. It is hard to know. So, but there are some things. Unfortunately, none of them allow us to be truly lazy. That's
I know. Because you're right. It's I have referred to it in the past as newsertainment. When the FCC deregulated, I can't say the word, news in like I think it was the 60s. That's when it started to be dependent upon ratings and things like that. And then we get the 24-hour news cycle, especially from like cable and streaming and and online, of course. So they're all competing for ratings. It's you want an audience. So if you can be more sensational, if you can throw in some more fun topics with your actual hard news.
You mean clickbait?
Clickbait. And I tell students, I'm very upfront, I fall for clickbait all the time. I really want to know what that cute sitcom star I had a crush on in the 80s looks like today.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And best sneaker trends to wear with skinny jeans. Hello.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're all human and we're all curious and we all want to be entertained. But where do we find information that we can trust? And there isn't a magic button anymore. You have to do a little bit of work.
But you do have to do a little bit of work. But I do need to say there still are some mainstream news sources that are a little bit more still brand name news sources that are still pretty decent. However, a lot of those require subscriptions. So if you are looking for a free news source, I strongly encourage reaching out through your databases, through your library. So like as a school, we have database subscriptions. Our ProQuest database has newspapers from all around the globe in so many languages. Public library also has newspaper database subscriptions. So there's some ways to get access for free to some of those articles that are definitely hidden behind a firewall when you know, I frequently max out my only 3 Washington Post articles a month. So then I go to the database and read them that way. But it takes a little bit of time, but when it becomes a habit, then it's ingrained. So I say one strategy is to use a database.
That is such an excellent strategy. And I've even told students, you know, pop on Newsella because it's right there, and usually you can get some current headlines. I mean, I know, you know, we use it a lot more to find articles on a specific topic, but it is a news resource, and it's very easy to get to. But that is true, and there are reliable ones, but there you will find people who, you know, already have in their mind a distrust of a certain well-regarded news institution because a lot of us are being told, you know, oh, this skews politically this way and that skews politically that way. So really, I tell people, you know, find a source that you feel is pretty neutral, but then also check, you know, some people say like the Washington Post is a little bit more on the liberal side. I mean, I grew up in Baltimore near DC. Washington Post is like, it's like
local.
It's a local, and it's like the most trusted, respected paper in that area. No offense to the Baltimore Sun. The Baltimore Sun's great, but the Washington Post, because it being in Washington, D.C., deals with a lot more global news. So, you know, you may pick that and think, well, that has a certain bias already, and then find one that's pretty well respected that some people say is a little more conservative, like the Wall Street Journal. And oftentimes, and you know where I'm going, and it's where we're both going, you know, you've got to do that lateral reading. You say it.
Just been waiting for it. I'm like, say it.
Say our new favorite phrase. You've got to be
tab happy.
Oh gosh, we're so nerdy.
No, we are awesome.
We are awesome. We are awesome.
But yes, getting tab happy. And yeah, and what we mean by getting tab happy is not saving all the tabs from your Coca-Cola can, because why do you do that? What we're meaning is open multiple tabs and see what it says in, you know, in the Washington Post, in the Wall Street Journal, Christian Science Monitor, which I was first exposed to in college. I was like, wait, this is actually a pretty, like, it's good coverage. Like it's good
coverage. Yes.
Good coverage. Go to those places, open up your database, open up Twitter, find out what all the things are saying, because it's part of like our SIFT method of investigating the source. You just got to know what it's saying across, but the more tabs you have open, the more you can confirm or deny what you're seeing. And it's really easy for us to, like, as you were said earlier, get into the echo chamber. It's really easy for us to look for what we want it to say. And what we're looking for is truth. And when we're looking for truth, sometimes that means that we have to admit that we're wrong.
Yeah. And that's tough. Nobody likes to admit they're wrong.
No.
I like to be right about a lot of things. I mean, you know, you could ask my family if occasionally I've got the "I told you so" mentality. But I also know that I can be wrong. I'm frequently wrong, and I want to be just and honest and true, even if that means I'm in the wrong.
We got to be like Wonder Woman with our lasso of truth. We're looking for truth.
I like that. Sorry. Much of my childhood was I would get the bracelets, and then Wonder Woman, and the jump rope was the lasso of truth, and then I would turn over a kitchen chair, and that would be my motorcycle, and I would be Batgirl, because Batgirl
Was a librarian.
Was a librarian. Yes.
I
Who
know.
wouldn't want to be back? A motorcycle riding, red hair at night, brown hair during the day, librarian.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Barbara Gordon, she's my alter
Barbara.
ego.
Yep, Barbara Gordon. Amazing.
On that tangent.
I know. Sorry. We should talk about SIFT, right?
We should talk about SIFT because we're alluding to SIFT. So like if we had to give some like 1 or 2 takeaways back to the classroom. 1, databases are not cheating. It's great. We need to ingrain that as a habit. 2, we need to try to find neutral sources or at least multiple sides of a spectrum sources.
Mhm.
Number 3, we colloquially call that get tab happy or lateral reading. So like we're reading broadly to confirm or deny what we're seeing. But all of that is part of the SIFT method. So what is the SIFT method?
Well, my favorite letter in SIFT is S because it's stop.
Also, I just have to say, I always want to sing Ice Ice Baby right there. Stop. Collaborate
Stop
and listen.
Oh, we're very silly today. This is a very serious topic, but you know what? You can have fun as you are also a responsible gatherer of information. So yes, so stop. I still say, because I'm cynical, that they put the S, the stop there because they wanted it to spell SIFT, and they couldn't have it just be IFT because that's just terrible.
No. So stop. And then investigate the source.
Because
that's the other thing. So sometimes you don't necessarily feel like opening like 14 tabs to find other coverage. What you can do is this article that somebody shared in Facebook or Twitter, is this even a good article to begin with? Mm-hmm. Investigate what that source is.
Yeah, and we talked about the flip side of this in an earlier podcast where, just as you need to be responsible for what you share, make sure that, if you are passing on information or passing on an article, you should be investigating the source before you even share it. But even if it's your most beloved, bestest friend in the world who's sharing something with you, they may mean well, but it doesn't hurt to stop and go, let me see where they got this information to begin with. And, and that's where some of the old tricks come in, like, look for, can you find out the background of the person who wrote the article? If you can't always, but if you can, great, because that means they're not hiding who they are.
Right. Well, and also investigating that URL, because there's a lot of of dupe sites where they're what's it called? Article farming, where they take articles and then they redo them.
It is article farming or yeah.
I think it's article farming.
Farming.
Yeah, where they are trying to look reputable, but they're not. And we all have friends and family. We've all fell victim to this. I mean, those are real. They're a real problem. We also know that those are really a vehicle by which people are trying to get spyware into your computers. That's a whole other issue for why you should not pass those on. So F is find better, or I is I investigate the source. F is find better coverage. And T is trace claims, quotes, and media.
Like the T is what? No. Yes.
Trace.
And that's the part that a lot of people skip, but that's actually one of the more approachable parts is, looking for claims and quotes and media, images and things like that. That's a really quick way. I mean, if you're like, I need to know if I can trust this, you can do a reverse image lookup. You can do, find out who the quote is attributed to. If it's attributed to anyone at all, which is another red flag. It's like, we have a quote from an expert and they never, tell us
what are they an expert in.
Yes.
I'm always like, come on. I have my master's in library science. I am an expert in library science. I am not an expert in dog psychology, but I could claim to be one on the internet.
You could. I frequently claim to be an expert at things that I think I know a lot about, but maybe I should. No, don't listen to me. I'm joking. But no, I mean, so you know, tracing those things, sometimes you might need to jump to the T. Um, Back to the F for a second, though.
Mhm.
Forgot what I was going to say.
Finding better coverage.
Finding better coverage. I also like to sneak in, and this is cheating a little bit, that it's finding better coverage, but also sometimes if you're on the search for better coverage and you're like, I don't know this resource, maybe you're, you know, new to um the news world or the information world. um F can also be fact check, because
Oh
there are
yeah.
some really good, reliable fact checking sites that, you know, right away you can put in, you know, just like the title of the article, and a fact checking site like Snopes or factcheck.org will kind of say this has been debunked, or this, oh yeah, there's some truth in this, and that can give you a hint as to whether you need to find better coverage.
I have heard some people complain about Snopes and factcheck.org as being liberal propaganda. So I think if that is your perception about a fact checking site, then I'm not sure how to help you fact check. Like if you're starting out on the bias that the fact checking sites are
Our
lying
bias.
to you,
Yeah.
that's a different level. But I think when you're starting from the premise that I want to know the truth or what is really trustworthy online, like those are places where we can work. But if we're starting from this like
Yeah.
this other place, that is a hard.
And it is. It's made our jobs particularly more difficult, because I love that there's so much information and people have access to so much information, but
Mhm,
now everybody's a librarian.
mhm,
I'm being
mhm.
facetious, but it's like, I found sources online that validate everything that I'm saying, and it's like, yeah, but you gotta go deeper. You gotta, and yeah, if you don't trust the fact checking organizations, then look for experts that
Experts. Yeah,
you do
yeah.
trust, or you know, expert sources, like I mean, most, if we just stick with like science and medicine, there are, you know, actual academic organizations that kind of regulate what
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah,
So
but that's when we need to go back to it needs to be a reliable resource. So like a YouTube documentary is not the reliable resource as much as we want
yeah,
it to be. As much as I enjoy watching my regular YouTube videos about like decorating my house and tiny houses, that's a different it's different. And when you're looking for academic information, you need to go to an academic source.
you do. And that takes us back to the databases,
Exactly.
because okay, we can't stress this enough. The databases do so much work for you, and most of them have these fabulous, you know, limiters and filters that, like, I only want peer reviewed articles.
Mhm,
Yes, you do, because if something goes through a peer review, it's a very stringent process of, you know, someone who's a certified expert in that field has to, and it's more than one someone. Most peer reviews
mhm.
is what, like,
It's a panel, like
it's a
it's
panel,
yeah,
yeah.
and it's usually multiple times through.
Yeah. So, you know, that this has been checked for you and will save you some work.
Mhm.
But
And some headache. I mean, so while it feels like this big onerous thing to go into a database, in the long term, like you're saving yourself some time. Like it's like cheat codes for life, like using reliable sources, but shortening some of the work. Um, yeah. So I guess I would say another, just thinking back to our big question of there's so much conflicting information on the news. I think another thing is when it comes to breaking news, take the time. I've been telling students hashtag take the time. Take the time
nice.
to step back and like allow yourself a little bit of emotional space. So if you're seeing something's happening right now, pause, like take a deep breath, ground yourself, and then you'll just give yourself a little bit more clarity before you like start doing some fact checking. Because then you, if you don't calm yourself, you start falling down this rabbit hole of, oh my gosh, the world is ending, disaster as we know it.
Yeah, our emotions do affect the way that we process information, and there's a lot of breaking news that feels very shocking and very urgent and very disastrous. And again, some of it is, there's a lot going on in the world, but some of it is also just the headline grab, the ratings grab, the clickbait of the news world. Yeah. So yeah, don't be fueled by your emotions with that. That's great advice, Miss Meschter.
Thanks. I've also been using the hashtag take the time for a lot of things. Hashtag take the time to get tab happy. Like, I mean, it's just like, it works for a lot of digital literacy strategies.
It does. It does. But also don't open so many tabs at once that you crash your Chromebook.
Oh, that's easy to do.
It is easy to do.
That's what one tab is for. One
which
tab.
You turned me on to. Yes.
I'm like, my one tab's all like, oh, you've got 3 browsers open. Let's fix that.
But no, I mean, having, and again, the beauty and the pain of the internet, the interwebs, is, having access to so much and having access to so much, but it really does give you the option that, I talk about the good old days and you had your reliable sources, but also sources became your go-to places because you didn't have as many places to go.
Yeah.
So
also, before the 24-hour news cycle, breaking news didn't happen in the same way.
That is true.
And so, there's definitely things that are breaking news, like that would have still have been breaking news, 20, 30 years ago. But when there's 24-hour news cycle, so much that's breaking news. We just have to slow down. We have to slow down. And like, that's a huge, that is a whole different like podcast, I think, is how to slow down, how to manage your digital mental space, like your mental space around your digital life. Like that's.
Yeah. And I really think we should have that podcast because I've, talked in the public library about sort of information overload and the hazards of that, and the ways we can avoid that, because it is real. And I mean, a lot of what people are experiencing with Zoom fatigue is based in the same kind of world as information overload. It's just like too much in your face at once, and we're not designed that way. We need time to reflect, and we need time to absorb and digest information. So yeah, maybe that should be our next one.
That should be our next one. Our digital, it's a digital literacy, managing your digital life podcast. I think that sounds great.
That sounds
on that note, I think we'll see everybody next time.
All right.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.